and Yemen, as well as all refugees. Moments before the ban began, it emerged that the state of Hawaii had asked a federal judge for clarification. It has in the past accused the U.S. government of violating the Supreme Court's instructions by improperly excluding people. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court partially upheld the ban, lifting injunctions that had halted one of the president's key policies.
We've been, in Turkey, it's so extreme. The measures are so extreme. The security measures are a lot more extreme than here. Therefore, I feel like civil liberties is secondary to our comfort. I'm used to that. As an American, when I put my American hat on, I'm not used to that. No, I definitely feel we're being violated.
Most Muslims feel that this isn't the best way to promote peace and to stop terrorism, which we all want to do. I mean, Muslims are the ones who are suffering the most from terrorism. So, but we respect whatever America chooses to do. I hope that America will think about peace and harmony as the goal.
But now that fiancés are allowed, they've really narrowed the scope of what a bona fide is, which they should not have done. And it just seems that this administration can never leave good enough alone. They should have just let it go. So Hawaii, I guess, has already filed a motion. There's a potential stay out of Hawaii already. So we feel like we're going to keep winning, to be honest. And we're not going to get sick of winning.
You don't see the protests here today, but the protests have already done the damage to this horrible executive order. So, we're just here to make sure that what the Supreme Court said is being followed. Everything seems pretty calm. So we can do that with a few dozen people, but it's a lot different. But it's because of all those people that came originally.
Meanwhile, Senate Republicans are working on a plan for repealing Barack Obama's signature health reforms. But a nonpartisan budget forecast says this would leave 22 million more Americans uninsured by 2026.
As dawn breaks, more people join the line, hoping they're early enough to be one of those seen at a free clinic in Southern Virginia. Despite the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, slightly over 11% of the American population still have no insurance.
Yeah, I guess it's helped a lot of people, but it didn't help me out now.
Few of those lining up have much hope that things will get better for them under the Republicans' health care plan.
Now anybody can get insurance. So if they're going to replace it with something that everybody can't get, then I don't think it's going to help.
But it doesn't sound like it's going to be a great thing for everyone. And in my opinion, if we're going to make some changes is supposed to be for the better, right? So maybe we need to look at that thing again.
In 2015, remote area medical saw more than 28,000 patients in the United States. Most come for dental or vision checkups, services that are rarely covered by insurance, even after Obamacare came in.
We didn't see a lot of change, really. We would have been happy to be put out of business, but the reality is that it really didn't change things a whole lot. So hopefully down the road we'll have something that they don't need us.
Under the proposed legislation, funding for Medicaid, a government healthcare program for low-income and disabled people, will be slashed, forcing states to implement stricter criteria for coverage. But most of the patients here already can't afford annual checkups and preventative care, despite working full-time.
I'm surprised myself at how many of the participants say, yes, I'm working full-time, but they still don't have any insurance. I think that health care is a right, and I hope that we are able to have an improved health care system for the people so there are not so many people that are left out.
The proposed Senate bill could leave 22 million more Americans uninsured, but pushback in the Senate has so far stalled the vote, leaving Republicans scrambling to win more support.
After nearly 4 decades of foot-stomping music that challenged South Africa's apartheid regime and promoted racial reconciliation, Johnny Clegg, aka the White Zulu, is heading out on his final tour. On Saturday, Clegg will start his global farewell tour with a concert in Cape Town before playing other South African venues and then on to London, France, Dubai, the United States and Canada. The 64-year-old, who is famed for his multi-ethnic collaborations, says the decision to bring down the curtain on live performing came after he was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. Here's Lilian Odera with that report.
It is a journey that saw him endure harassment from apartheid police and a white minority rule when he was targeted for playing with black musicians. In contrast, his music and activism attracted a worldwide fan base that packed venues such as the Royal Albert Hall in London and across France, where he remains a huge national star. Clegg's fascination with Zulu dance and melodies began in the dingy blacks-only migrant workers' hostels in Johannesburg in the 1960s, where he sneaked in to join traditional dancers. He secretly rehearsed with dance troupe, though his presence as a white person was outlawed by apartheid.
Yeah, I was always a bridge for white people into the possibility of connecting with, another culture, not in an academic way, but in a sensuous engagement and mode of sharing and joy and just getting that connection.
He credits the 1982 song Scatterlings of Africa as the tune that catapulted him and his band to stardom, as it topped charts in France and England.
Our record company, it said, we think you'll sell about 15,000 units, you're an alternative artist, we speak French, you're singing in English and Zulu, it's not easy, but you've got a good show. And, through the show, we'll sell albums. But we think about... And my manager said, I'm sure we could make 50,000 albums. And we all said, we'll see, Anyway, we sold 1.3 million albums of the first album.
When the song Asimbo Nanga, a Zulu for We Have Not Seen Him was released in 1987, it was banned by the South African authorities. The song paid tribute to Nelson Mandela, then in jail, and was outlawed because any reference to the anti-apartheid leader was illegal. Today, the song is a popular anthem for modern South Africa.
I'd like to do a final autobiographical show, which basically wraps up my life on stage, audiovisual, photographs, history of my life, and Juluka, Savuka, Johnny Clegg, all of the whole journey.
Clegg's cross-cultural work led to his arrest on several occasions for contravening race segregation laws, while his concerts were often halted by police. The British-born artist, who arrived in South Africa as a 7-year-old boy, stressed that his defiance of racial laws and interest in Zulu culture was not motivated by politics.
The idea really is that I'm fit and strong. I'd like to be able to present just a final farewell while I am still capable of doing it.
The trained anthropologist who used to lecture at Johannesburg's Wits University, is writing his autobiography and said he will still make music, but will no longer perform in public. Lilian Odera, KTN News.
Refugees from the Central African Republic are helping ease the tension with local residents in Cameroon over scarce firewood and preserving forests in the process. With new energy-saving stoves that use briquettes made from clay and sawdust collected from local sawmills, many in Mbile are no longer in need of firewood for cooking.
30-year-old Hawa Hamadu from Central African Republic makes a meal of stiff porridge on a clay stove fueled by small briquettes. It's a change from the open wood fire she was used to and easier than spending hours searching for wood far from the refugee camp where she lives in Bile, Eastern Cameroon. When you go to find firewood, you walk far. It takes many hours and you have to carry the wood on your head when going back. When you return, you're tired. With briquettes, we do not use as much effort. It is clean and we do not get dirty when cooking. Hawa has been here for 3 years. Mbile's population of 5,000 swelled to nearly 16,000 between the year 2012 and 2014 as thousands of refugees fleeing violence in the Central African Republic found shelter in the village. Using energy-saving stoves that use briquettes made from sawdust and other waste is also helping to ease tension between refugees and locals over increasingly scarce wood in the area. Although the new stoves were initially designed for the refugees, local residents have also embraced them. I thank the project. I am satisfied now. Before, when we went to the bush, there were fights between local residents and the refugees when we found the refugees in the fields. Today, there are no fights. Mbile now has 10 centers making the fuel, 5 in the refugee camp and 5 in the village, each producing 8,000 briquettes per day. The briquettes are made with clay and sawdust from local sawmills. Nearly 70% of Mbile's population no longer searches for wood in the bush. Rodrigue Jacou runs the project in Mbile for the German Development Agency.
Using sawdust briquettes helps us save about 16 tons of dried wood per day around Mbile. 1 year after, it is about 6,000 tons of dry wood that are preserved around Mbile because they are not cut down. Surveys carried out after the implementation of the project show that almost 70% of the Mbile population is no longer searching for wood in the bush.
According to Cameroon's Ministry of Forests, about 1 hectare of forest is cut down per person per year to supply enough wood or charcoal to burn. That amounts to about 1.6 kgs of wood per inhabitant per day. These numbers could be higher. The most recent national data on the use of wood as firewood or charcoal is more than 5 years old. Janet Chapia, KTN News.
To Brazil now, where an explosion at a chemical factory in Greater Sao Paulo caused huge fires which swept through the complex, calling on 25 teams of firemen, one of whose officials was injured. According to the fire service, the explosion occurred after fires reached 2 tanks of highly flammable solvent. Local residents said the explosion was heard in nearby towns. A spokesperson for the fire service said the flames reached 700 degrees Celsius in some areas. Despite large plumes of black smoke rising into the air, the local airport of Cumbica remained open.
O senhor acha que ainda demora para controlar esse fogo?
Olha, Raquel, certamente os tanques, quando a gente possui um material muito combustível como esses,
On a lighter note now, does the key to aging well lie below the sea level? Well, that is what Bundle Wines, in collaboration with the local driving school in southern France, are trying to find out. For the past year, 120 bottles have been the guinea pigs in an experiment to test the effects of the deep on winemaking.
This boat casting off from France's southern coast is about to pull up an unusual bounty. Bottles of wine that were submerged a year ago to test the impact of the sea on the aging process. The darkness, the pressure, even the movement of the sea are thought to slow fermentation and improve its effects, an idea that comes from accidental discoveries of underwater treasures.
We found barrels that are hundreds or even thousands of years old, and more recently we found bottles of champagne or wine that had sunk several decades ago. Some had even sunk during World War II, and the people who taste them think they taste good.
Nestled between the mountains and the Mediterranean, the vineyards of Bondel are the product of a unique climate. For this wine grower, turning to the sea to help the aging process simply makes sense.
Two things are important, not just living a long time, but also living well. And our research is to grow a wine that is going to get better with time. That's what Bandols have been doing for decades. And of course, if we're able to gain a few decades, we'd like to.
It's the moment of truth, and the first step is removing the layer of wax that was used to seal out the seawater. After a round of blind tasting, this panel of wine professionals agrees. Red wines that have aged underwater taste younger.
A beautiful mouthfeel, a beautiful structure, notes of very, very ripe dark fruits, with chocolate notes as well. We're going towards secondary aromas, but that aren't yet completely achieved today, so it's a wine with a future.
With similar experiments underway elsewhere, this technique may also have a future. But for now, no bottles are being sold to the public, and if any do make it to the market, the extra care and attention needed to produce them will make sea-aged wine a luxury product with a price to match.
Scientists from Authentication Computer Vision Labs in Johannesburg, South Africa, have developed a new authentication technology dubbed ADEX, which developers say surpasses the overall performance of conventional authentication methods by using a human-like cognition system. Here is more.
A South African firm developed a groundbreaking technology that could revolutionize authentication and better fight against identity theft. Authenticate Computer Vision Labs has been working under the University of Johannesburg on the technology known as ADEX for close to 7 years, using artificial intelligence to stimulate human cognition in authenticating identities goes beyond the biometrics of passwords, fingerprints and eye scans, and can be used in larger populations with more accuracy.
From the initial idea that conventional methods of authentication really falls short in a post-9/11 world, where we need to have a much greater level of certainty who somebody actually is. And in order to answer that question, we appealed to deep science, deep learning, to develop an AI method, artificial intelligence method, in other words, to replicate or to mimic or to simulate the way that we as humans intuitively and instinctively go about recognizing somebody. So it's very different to the conventional, traditional ways of face recognition, fingerprint recognition. And for that reason, it really represents the next generation of authentication technologies or methods, and it's revolutionary. It really is. Bred here in South Africa at the University of Johannesburg.
The process works similar to the human sensory system to identify and authenticate information. The role of the eye is played by a camera, which feeds information using a cable, similar to the retina, into the brain, or in the case, the cloud, where the information is processed. Imelman says this kind of technology is simple enough to use on a mobile phone, but so intelligent it can benefit high-level big data entities like government, big corporations, and even law enforcement.
The technology is...
According to a report by Javelin Strategy Research, more than 15 million consumers were victims of identity theft last year, losing $16 billion, which tracks cases of fraud in the United States. Authenticate says up to $2 trillion was lost globally to identity theft.
We need to get traction of the worldwide use, because to be effective at this performance of our technology, we need to continually make sure that we get people to use it. Therefore, we need world traction of the usage. So the more users or the more our subjects use the technology, the more the effectiveness, the robustness, and capability that it carries on.
Developers say field tests so far have shown that ADEX capabilities surpass the accuracy of conventional methods by up to 20 times. Plans are underway to take ADEX technology to the market in the next month. Ashley Mazuri, KTN News.
Small business owners in Uganda have been benefiting from saving and credit cooperatives or SACCOs to help them expand their trade. SACCOs generally offer lower interest rates to members compared to normal bank rates. Members of Parliament are now pushing for more stringent regulations of SACCOs.
2 years ago, Jen Kiwanuka was struggling to access funding for her cash-starved chicken business. The farmer based in Kampala's Mukono district says she approached several banks, but none was willing to give her credit without collateral. Kiwanuka then signed up with God Alive Financial Services, a savings and loan cooperative, and was able to borrow $28 to pump into her business. When she started out, she had only 40 chicks. Now she has over 400 layers and sells at least 21 trays of eggs per week, which earn her about $200. Kiwanuka also keeps pigs and grows bananas and other crops. My income has really increased. Before it was impossible to buy chicken feed on credit. The dealer would say they need cash to restock. Today I get chicken feed whenever I need it because I can easily borrow money from my SACCO. Also, I'm motivated to work hard so that I can expand my business. I first started with young layers, but now I deal in both mature and young layers, and I'm growing my business. Small loans are helping millions of Africans as microfinance institutions expand on the continent, empower micro-entrepreneurs, and alleviate poverty. SACCOs generally offer tiny loans at lower interest rates compared to banks, using members' savings as security. Microfinance has been around for decades, but has mushroomed in recent years, especially in Asia, where more than 100 million people have access to microcredit. It has become increasingly popular in Africa, with Uganda being one of the countries with the highest uptake of the model.
People do not have security, they live to us, but they guarantee each other. By this, we are supporting them. Someone comes without much, but they have a business they can sustain. So with growth of that business, they will later have security, because when the business grows, they acquire assets. So you find after being a group borrower, they will come as individual borrowers, because at this point, they will have assets as collateral. So we support them from scratch. Someone comes for 100,000, grows. By the time they're on the 6th cycle, they've really grown. They have assets, they can support themselves, and they can have collateral.
Members of Parliament have been pushing for new regulations in the country, saying SACCOs have been operating without comprehensive regulation, leaving the money of millions of depositors at risk. Under the new regulations, SACCOs will need to carry out annual audits of accounts and introduce stringent measures aimed at protecting the savings and members' share capital.
We are going to see challenge of integrating technology in a positive sense, because technology has a way of being predatory. It can pick out only the good ones, but you want it to benefit the whole base. So going forward, technology is coming down, smartphones are everywhere, apps are becoming apps. People can even hack into the system and steal it, because the SACCO may not have adequate money to hire an ICT consultant to secure their system. So they need to link up to learn the good practices to benefit from the big advantage from the big actors, but without killing them. So integrating technology is going to be very key to determining the future of the SACCO industry.
A 2012 report from the World Bank showed small and medium-sized businesses have a capitalization of between $3 to $15 million. And they make up to 80% of Africa's private sector and contribute 50% of the new jobs in sub-Saharan Africa. Janet Chapia, KTN News.
Dozens of men wearing stilettos, kitten heels, wedges and colorful costumes took part in Madrid's annual high feet race for 2017 World Pride festivities that happened 2 days ago. Using rolls of sticky tape, the runners strapped their shoes to their feet before running down Calle Pelayo in Madrid's neighborhood of Chueca, the epicenter of Pride celebrations in the Spanish capital. The competition, which is only for men, is one of the top events in Madrid Pride celebrations, which this year was expected to host more than 3 million revelers through from June 23rd 3rd to the 2nd of July. People from all over the world took part in the competition that offers prizes up to €500. And in sports news, Kenya will battle Uganda, Ghana and Botswana in the World Cup qualifiers in Nairobi in a bid to secure a ticket for the Under-19 Cricket World Cup that will take place in New Zealand in January 2018. While officially announced